Well, we just saw House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries blast Donald Trump and Republicans' big-ass ugly bill. And he did this in a record 8-hour and 44-minute speech on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. Let's break down what happened.
You're seeing Jeffries there take a sip of his water as he has now crossed the record for the longest House floor speech in history. Let's listen as he begins, we think, to wrap this up.
More time. Take your time. As we prepare to vote on this one big ugly bill. That's right. Tough time for people in the United States of America. It's extraordinary extremism unleashed on the American people. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle promised to address the high cost of living. Nothing in this bill will meaningfully lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. Nothing. It's incredible to me. All of the promises that were made by some people in this town. That the top priority was going to be to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. And then, all of last year, ran away from Project 2025. Come on. Come on. Acted like it didn't exist. That's right. And then, Mr. Speaker, people come to town, they're in the majority now, and every single part of the extremism that we've seen unleashed on the American people is connected to Project 2025. Every single part. But here's why I still got hope, optimism. I referenced this earlier today. As we prepare to experience the 249th birthday of the United States of America. Yeah. Take it back to that original document. Yeah. Declaration of Independence, 1776. Right. Mr. Speaker, it had the aspirational part. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Yeah. Come on now. Bring it home. Endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Come on now. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Come on. Come on. That's the aspirational part of the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. And as House Democrats, we're committed, no matter what it takes, to bring that about. Imagine in America where everyone who works hard and plays by the rules can live the good life, afford to live the good life. Good paying jobs, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement. That's what House Democrats are fighting for. That's the aspirational part of the Declaration of Independence, to bring that to life, the pursuit of happiness. That's the aspirational part. But then when you look at that Declaration of Independence, the second part of it, it reads like an indictment against an out-of-control king. Reads like an indictment against an out-of-control king. I commend all Americans, perhaps sometime tomorrow, I'm going to do this myself, Read that document in its entirety.
Yeah. Come on, read it, read it. Read it.
And why was that indictment issued? I think it was because the framers of this great country, they were fed up with Project 1775. And so they implemented Project 1776. So I know that there are people concerned with what's happening in America, but understand what our journey teaches us is that after Project 2025 comes Project 2026. And you will have an opportunity to end this national nightmare as part of Project 2026. I love the framers. They gave us a blueprint for what should give us hope in this moment.
That's right.
I think that I want to close by referencing
Take your sweet time.
someone who we all serve with. I want to stand on the shoulders, if it's okay, on some of our civil rights heroes and foot soldiers.
Yes, yes.
Those whose character, whose conviction, whose courage should give the American people hope at a moment of great despair. Many of us had the great honor of serving with Congressman John Lewis. The great honor, Mr. Speaker, to serve with Congressman John Lewis.
That's right.
And I came across something that John Lewis said in June of 2028, that hopefully, no matter what the outcome of this vote, will give people some hope. Great John Lewis said, "Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful. Be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. That's our struggle. No matter what, Mr. Speaker, you decide to do today, that's our struggle. Standing on the shoulders of John Lewis, that's our struggle. Never ever be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble. Good trouble. Good trouble. Necessary trouble. Standing on the shoulders of giants. John Lewis would often talk to us about his admiration for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King, who would refer to John Lewis as the boy from Troy.
The boy from Troy.
Now, what's interesting to me, that civil rights movement, we can learn a lot from it. Started December of 1955. And Rosa Parks sat down on that bus so that all of us could have the courage to stand up.
That's right.
Wasn't an easy struggle. All the odds were stacked against these civil rights heroes and foot soldiers. And during the early days of the movement, a difficult part of the movement, Dr. King, after they've been targeted, arrested, beaten, harassed by the authorities, He traveled to Brooklyn, New York.
Yes. Brooklyn.
And spoke at the Concord Baptist Church. I think it was in March of 1956. And he said to a group of people of every race, every religion, every life experience, the Concord Baptist Church in Bedford-Stuyvesant, said to them, no matter what the odds, we've got to press on.
Press on. Press on. Press on.
Dr. King said that if you can't fly, run.
That's right.
If you can't run, walk.
That's right.
If you can't walk, crawl. But at all times, press on.
Press on. Press on.
And keep pressing.
Press on.
And so as I take my seat, I just want to say to the American people that no matter what the outcome is on this singular day,
Fight forward.
we're going to press on. We're going to press on. We're going to press on. We're going to press on for our children, press on for our seniors, press on for our veterans, press on for our unions, press on for our farmers, press on for our dreamers, press on for working class Americans, press on for the middle class, press on for all who aspire to be part of the middle class, press on for the poor, press on for the sick, press on for the afflicted, press on for the least, press on for the lost, press on for the left behind, press on for the rule of law, press on for the American way of life, press on for democracy. We're going to press on until victory is won. I yield back.
The U.S. House of Representatives, right after Representative Hakeem Jeffries gave his speech, they voted 218 to 214 to pass Donald Trump's one big beautiful bill, what I call the big ass ugly bill or the big ugly ass bill. Okay. And you only had two Republicans who voted along with the Democrats to vote against this bill. That was Representative Thomas Massie out of Kentucky, Republican, and Republican Brian Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania. So this is a horrible bill. There have been recent polls that show about 2/3 or close to 2/3 of Americans are against this bill. There was a poll from Fox News that showed 59% of Americans that they polled were against this bill as well. Now, this bill passed after on Tuesday. It passed in the Senate by a vote of 51 to 50, and Vice President J.D. Vance was the tie-breaking vote. Now, at the center of this big-ass ugly bill is an extension of Donald Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was slated to end at the end of 2025. And this new bill is going to give a $4.5 trillion tax cut to the wealthy by the year 2034. So over basically the next 10 years. A $4.5 trillion tax cut is going to cut spending by $1.2 trillion. And we're going to see $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion cut from Medicaid by the year 2034 as well. It's expected that 17 million people are going to lose their health care. And that's a combination of coming from Medicaid as well as the Affordable Health Care Act. You have $150 billion to boost the military and about $46 billion when it comes to border security. Now, the bill is partially paid for by significant cuts to health care and nutrition programs like Medicaid and SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. The Congressional Budget Office, also known as the CBO, which is a nonpartisan department, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that the bill would add $3.4 trillion to federal deficits over the next 10 years and leave millions without health insurance. So it's expected that about 17 million people will lose their health insurance. And the Washington Post has a good article breaking this down as well. Republicans and the White House dispute those forecasts, but what would you expect them to say? Okay, now this is after Donald Trump campaigned on not touching Medicare, not touching Medicaid, not saying people weren't going to lose their health insurance, things of this nature. Okay, if we look at this piece here from the Washington Post, at least 17 million Americans would lose insurance under Trump plan. GOP legislation would set back years of progress in expanding healthcare coverage, unwinding key parts of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And this piece is from July 1st, 2025 from the Washington Post. So this is an article you can check out, and it talks about how the bill, which narrowly passed the Senate on Tuesday, now heads to the House. It passed the House, would effectively accomplish what Republicans have long failed to do. Okay, which it would effectively accomplish what Republicans have long failed to do: unwind many of the key components of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, President Barack Obama's signature domestic achievement, which dramatically increased the number of Americans with access to health insurance. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that the Senate version of the bill would result in 11.8 million people more uninsured or losing their insurance in 2034, mostly because of Medicaid cuts, compared with 10.9 million people if the House version, the original House version, became law. So the Senate version was even worse than the House version. But when you add in the people losing the Affordable Care Act, it's even worse. Now, the Republican bill would mark the biggest cut to Medicaid in Medicaid's nearly 60-year history, and the biggest reduction in federal funding for the social safety net since at least the 1990s. The U.S. Senate version of this bill would cut $1.1 trillion of federal spending for Medicaid, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, with Medicaid accounting for more than $1 trillion of these cuts. Now, the legislation also includes some $46.5 billion for border wall construction. This big ass ugly bill also includes more than $46.5 billion for border wall construction and related expenses, $45 billion to expand detention capacity for immigrants in custody, and about $30 billion in funding for hiring, training, and other resources for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. There's a good piece from the Associated Press as well that talks about what's in this bill. And also there's one from CBSnews.com that breaks down what's in this bill. Okay, there's a good piece from CBSnews.com, July 3rd, 2025. Here's what's in Trump's big, beautiful bill passed by Congress. And it talks about the tax cuts. It breaks down, it talks about the attack on Medicaid and SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, $3.4 trillion added to the federal deficit over the next 10 years. And then it goes through and breaks down by category, talks about Medicaid restrictions, Homeland Security and immigration, the $46.5 billion for border wall construction, etc., $45 billion for detention capacity for immigrants in custody. So you can check this out also. You also see an attack on the green energy policies that were in the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act that Biden-Harris got passed, and no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay. One of the things in the Inflation Reduction Act was $2.2 billion in aid for African-American farmers and farmers of color also. So you have the final bill passed by the Senate would largely terminate numerous tax incentives from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act for clean energy, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency programs. Let's go back to this here. The final bill passed by the Senate would largely terminate numerous tax incentives from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act for clean energy, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency programs that benefited consumers. It would end tax credits for new and used electric vehicles, installation of home electric vehicle charging equipment, and installation or energy efficient heating and cooling systems. The bill also ends the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which gives funding to nonprofit organizations providing financing for projects that reduce pollution and greenhouse gas emissions in communities. Existing contracts and grants under the program are not affected. Existing contracts and grants under the program are not affected. So we see the attack on food stamps as well and the SNAP program. Okay, so this is a horrible, horrible bill that is going to cause upwards of 17 million people to lose health insurance. And also with the attack on Medicaid, what's going to happen is you're going to, with people getting kicked off of Medicaid, then you're going to have the closure of many hospitals in urban areas, but also in rural areas. And in a lot of these former Confederate states that voted for Donald Trump, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, things of this nature, you're going to have a lot of hospitals in rural areas closing down because they have less funding coming in, because less people are coming in who have Medicaid. And you're going to have the closure of a lot of hospitals also. So this is going to be devastating. Now, the Yale School of Public Health estimates that 51,000 people per year are going to die as a result of losing health care because of this big ass ugly bill. There's a good piece that breaks this down from Yale University. Proposed changes to Medicaid, other health programs could lead to over 51,000 preventable deaths, researchers warn. This is from the Yale School of Public Health from June 3rd, 2025. From June 3rd, 2025. In here, they say in a letter to ranking Senate leaders, public health and policy researchers at Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania warn that provisions, in a letter to ranking Senate leaders, public health and policy researchers at Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania warn that provisions in the House-passed federal budget reconciliation bill could lead to more than 51,000 deaths annually if enacted. Okay. In the breakdown is the researchers estimate that 42,000 lives could be lost each year from disenrollments in Medicaid and marketplace coverage, and the rollback of nursing home staffing rules. An additional 8,811 deaths are projected from the expiration of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act premium tax credits, that's Obamacare, bringing the total to more than 51,000 people dying per year, okay, because of this bill. So this is an example of how elections have consequences. And this is an example how this is a life and death issue, literally. Okay, so check that article out as well. Now, one question that I asked when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Monday, June 30th, 2025, and this bill was being debated in the U.S. Senate. One question I asked is, where are all the black people who voted for Donald Trump because they thought he was going to give them stimulus checks again? Okay, like during coronavirus, during the pandemic, and the stimulus checks passed Congress and they were pushed for by Democrats in Congress, and he put his signature on there. And you had black people during the 2024 campaign saying that they were going to vote for Trump because they wanted stimulus checks. The stimulus checks are not in here. What happened to the stimulus checks? Then also, what happened to the $5,000 Doge refund checks? They're not in this bill either. Now, the one big beautiful bill would reduce income by 2.9%, or about $700 per year for the bottom 20% of households, according to the Yale Budget Lab analysis. CNBC.com has an excellent article that talks about how lower income people are going to be even hurt more by this bill, and how it benefits the wealthy, the top 1%. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act will reduce income by 2.9%, approximately $700 per year for the bottom 20% of households, according to the Yale University analysis. These households have an income of less than $13,350 per year, it said. If we take a look here at this piece, because you want to look at this as well. This is from CNBC.com. Big Beautiful Bill mostly benefits the rich, while low earners would suffer from Medicaid and SNAP cuts, Yale report finds. This is from July 2nd, 2025. Okay, it was updated originally June 30th, 2025. And this analysis comes from the Yale Budget Lab report at Yale University. It will reduce incomes for low-earning households and raise incomes for wealthier households. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act would reduce income by 2.9%, or about $700 per year for the bottom 20% of households. The massive bill would raise income by 2.2%, or $5,700 per year for the top 20% who have incomes of more than roughly $120,000 per year, the study finds. These financial impacts are what the average household would experience each year from 2026 through 2034, according to the analysis, which modeled publicly known policies in the Senate bill as of Monday morning, June 30th. Quote, the bill shifts resources away from those at the lower end of the income distribution toward those at the top, said Harris Epsteiner, Associate Director of Economic Analysis at the Yale Budget Lab. Okay, so check out this article as well. They talk about sharp cuts to Medicaid and SNAP funding. The Congressional Budget Office found that the bottom 10% of households would lose $1,600 a year, or about 3.9% of their income, between 2026 and 2034 on average. The top 10% would gain $12,000 or 2.3% of income on average. So once again, check out this article from CNBC.com. Big Beautiful Bill mostly benefits the rich, while low earners would suffer from Medicaid and SNAP cuts, Yale report finds. TheGrio.com has a really good article that I posted on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, talking about how this bill would negatively hurt the African American community. Critics warn Trump and Republicans' one big beautiful bill will be ugly for Black Americans. Quote, Trump and GOP lawmakers have launched a direct attack on Black communities and the basic rights we fight for every day, said Kristen Powell, executive director of Black to the Future Action Fund. This article is from July 1st, 2025 by Garen Keith Gaynor for thegrio.com. In the article, they quote former Vice President Kamala Harris, who said, thanks to Senate Republicans, 17 million people will lose their health insurance. VP Kamala Harris also noted that energy bills will skyrocket. VP Kamala Harris also noted that energy bills will skyrocket by $400 a year as a result of climate spending cuts. As a result of climate spending cuts. And she said that the Republican bill will hurt, quote, working people across our nation, end quote, all in an effort to pay for $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires. It's actually going to be $4.5 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires over the course of about 10 years. Okay. Representative Jasmine Crockett said, if you would have told me that the Senate was going to work on a bill to be worse than what the House did, I would have told you you were a liar. I can't really say what the worst parts of it are. Okay, that's Representative Jasmine Crockett out of Texas. Now, Chiquita Brooks LaSure, who served as President Joe Biden's administrator at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, she said there are a lot of racial disparities in our healthcare outcomes that are beyond whether or not people have health insurance. But it is a fundamental part of being able to have better health outcomes. She was also the first African American nominated to that position. Now, after the bill's passage in the Senate on Tuesday, Donald Trump said it would, quote unquote, strengthen Medicaid. However, Chiquita Brooks LaSure told the Grio that the additional work requirements for Medicaid in an effort to rid out waste, fraud, and abuse, etc., are ultimately, quote, creating a series of barriers for everybody to take care of a small number of people who are not behaving the way they should, end quote. Now, cuts to Medicaid are expected to also balloon healthcare premiums for those insured under the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare by as much as $900 on average per person, by as much as $900 on average per person. For those privately insured by their employer, premiums would increase by an estimated $300 depending on their level of income. In fact, the former Biden official said her administration noticed the vast majority of fraud and abuse is in providers billing programs improperly, not Medicaid recipients. The vast majority, she said, under the Biden-Harris administration, they noticed that the vast majority of fraud and abuse in providers, it came from providers billing programs improperly, not from Medicaid recipients committing fraud. The Biden-Harris administration tightened rules for agents and brokers to address the issue. However, Brooks LaSure noted that the Trump administration, quote, rolled back some of the staff and the efforts that we took to ensure more accountability, end quote. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from thegrio.com. Critics warn Trump and Republicans' one big beautiful bill will be ugly for Black Americans. Now, here's another article that I posted on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my personal Facebook page, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. This is from the New York Times, and this deals with what Chiquita Brooks LaSure was saying when it talked about more paperwork requirements for Medicaid recipients. This is a really good article called How the GOP Bill Saves Money. Paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. There have been stories that I've seen on MSNBC about this, but this is a trick that Republicans are implementing, and they're saying, no, we're not making cuts to Medicaid. What they're going to do is reduce the number of people who are actually getting the benefits by making it much harder for them to get the benefits. Instead of directly reducing benefits for the poor, Republicans are making them harder to get and to keep. Okay, so this is evil, devilish, just wicked what Republicans are doing to their own constituents, okay, to people who voted for them and people who they serve. This is from July 1st, 2025. And it talks about how low-income Americans would lose health coverage and government food assistance on an unprecedented scale under the giant Republican policy bill, according to outside analysts. Donald Trump said, we're cutting $1.7 trillion in this bill, and you're not going to feel any of it. Okay. He said Thursday at the White House. That claim rests on a maneuver embedded throughout the sprawling legislation. Instead of explicitly reducing benefits, Republicans would make them harder to get and to keep. So I've seen interviews with some of these Republicans. I've seen it with Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who needs to be voted out of office. I've seen it with Byron Donalds out of Florida, who's a disgrace to Black people, Republican. He needs to be voted out of office. I want everybody to listen to me. Every single one of these Republicans who voted for this big ass ugly bill have to be voted out of office. You cannot let them continue to be paid. You cannot continue to let them be paid by taxpayer dollars after they betrayed their constituents, after they do this to people on Medicaid, after they do this to people who get SNAP assistance. Okay, they do not care about their constituents. They are cowards who bent over for Donald Trump. Many of them said they weren't going to vote for the bill. They ended up voting for the bill. These are cowards who don't give a damn about the people that they serve. And your vote shows me what you value. Always remember this. And you've heard me say this before on the African History Network show. Your vote shows me what you value. When we look at these sellout politicians like this, like these Republicans, okay, who vote against the interests of their own constituents, who vote against the interests of children in their districts, the elderly, people who get Medicaid, people who get SNAP assistance. They don't give a damn about them. All right. We have to vote them out of office, make sure they don't receive any more of the taxpayers' dollars because they don't deserve it. This is an example of how elections have consequences. None of these politicians are perfect. We should stop looking for perfect people because the constituents that they are serving are not perfect. But we have to understand how to stop a threat. Okay. And you have to fire these people, vote them out of office. It's not only about what politicians can do to help you, it's also understanding how to stop and block what they're trying to do to you. Okay. So this is why we have to do a systems analysis. And it's not about whether somebody is a Democrat or Republican. It's about their policies. It just so happens, however, that generally speaking, the policies of Democrats are much better than the policies of Republicans. And all you have to do is look at this big ass ugly bill and you see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you've heard me say before, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I sure as hell ain't stupid. But something that is stupid is how this whole deal went down. Here's an article from the New York Times. Trump goes on a charm offensive as he woos holdout Republicans. Trump goes on a charm offensive as he woos holdout Republicans. Donald Trump worked the phones and welcomed Republicans to the White House to cajole them into supporting his mega bill. They left with signed merchandise and photos of the Oval Office. Just pay attention to this. Just listen to this. This is sickening. These people are so weak and want to be accepted by Donald Trump so much that they're going to betray people in their districts that rely on Medicaid, Affordable Health Care Act, SNAP food assistance, things like this, so they could get some trinkets from a convicted felon con man and photos of the Oval Office like Donald Trump. And they claim that they're making America great again. This is from July 2nd, 2025. A conga line of angsty Republican lawmakers filed through the West Wing on Wednesday. This was Wednesday, July 2nd, hemming and hawing about the big domestic policy bill that Donald Trump wants them to pass by Friday, July 4th. They walked out with signed merchandise, photos in the Oval Office, and by some accounts, a newfound appreciation for the bill. Targets all of a blunt force charm offensive waged with precision by the president. No, you just got used to kissing his ass and bending over because you are cowards. That's what this is. You have no morals. You sold your soul. Okay? You sold your soul and you sold out your constituents and you sold out America. One White House official said Donald Trump had a line he used on many on his phone calls and meetings with wobbly Republicans. Quote, "Don't give the Democrats a win. Don't play into their hands," end quote. He got the Senate to pass a version of the bill on Tuesday, so Wednesday was spent cajoling, wheedling, and coaxing punk-ass Republican members of the House of Representatives who are more concerned about giving Democrats a win as opposed to saving lives in their districts. saving the lives of people who voted for them. They're more concerned about owning the libs and not giving Democrats a win. A clique of House Freedom Caucus members walked out of the White House in the early afternoon, their attitudes seemingly adjusted. Representative Tim Burchett, a Republican of Tennessee, who is weak and needs to be voted out of office, was one of them. He posted a video on social media gushing about the 2-hour experience he had just had with the president, and that was enough for him to sell out the people in his district of Tennessee, and tens of thousands of them rely on Medicaid. The president was wonderful as always, Tim Burchett said in the video, informative, funny. He told me he liked seeing me on TV, which was kind of cool. Okay, see, this is how much these people suffer from low self-esteem. So you are mesmerized by a 34-time convicted felon con man who incited an insurrection and was found liable in a civil lawsuit of sexual assault against E. Jean Carroll. Okay? Civil lawsuit, not criminal. You're impressed because he says he sees you on TV and he likes seeing you on TV. You think that's kind of cool. Representative Byron Donalds, who's a black Republican out of Florida, but you can't tell it. He's shown in the video too. He said, did you see them, what he signed for you? Donalds asked Burchett. He said, yeah, he signed a bunch of stuff. Burchett said, it's cool. So Donald Trump knows how to make these lowly lawmakers feel special. And these lawmakers, these are cheap dates right here. These are cheap dates, okay? He sends them handwritten attaboys. He takes their phone calls at all hours of the day, even interrupting high-level West Wing meetings so as not to miss them. He brings them to UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship fights and sits them ringside with his entourage. He invites them into a social whirl at Mar-a-Lago, all of which can feel incredibly heady for small-time members of Congress who lead unglamorous workaday lives, and a lot of them are ugly as hell too. Let's just be honest. A lot of them would not be on television if they weren't in Congress. You see some of them, okay? And then Donald Trump woos them, gives them first-class treatment, and they sell their constituents out. These people do not deserve to be paid by taxpayers. They have to be voted out of office. 2026 midterm elections is a day of reckoning on all these people who betrayed their constituents, who betrayed America. When we talk about the Declaration of Independence, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries referenced that, and he talked about an indictment, how the Declaration of Independence reads as an indictment against a king, against a dictator, King George III. Well, we got to have a day of reckoning in November 2026 midterm elections. Has to be a day of reckoning on Donald Trump, the big ass ugly bill, sellout Republicans. Okay, this is how elections have consequences. Okay, so check out these articles. We got to follow this, stay engaged. I know it's a lot of information, but, you know, it is what it is. All right. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Follow me on Facebook and fan base at the African History Network. Follow me on my YouTube channel and Instagram at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we have the my social media handles there. You can register for the online history classes that I teach also. You can also support us through Cash App and PayPal, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. All right. All right. So hopefully you learned a lot today. There's a lot more coming. We're, all this stuff is straight out of Project 2025. We're only basically 6 months into Trump's second presidency. And we have to continue to fight. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next.